So this is the first kind of training like its kind, our office digital communications. As we onboard new users into the CMS, new websites into the CMS, we would do a training, an orientation training. But there's been a lot of new people hired on, there's been turnover, people are promoted, they move around. So this is kind of a good chance for us to do one training, catch a lot of you guys or those of you who've been in the CMS, but you want to know more about the basics. Maybe it's been a while since you've been in it. So that's kind of what this is about. And I think we're gonna host one of these large trainings once a semester. At this point, if we need more, we'll try to accommodate. But also we're gonna do these CMS refresh sessions, and those will be a couple times each semester. We've already had one, we'll have another one towards the end of October. We'll send you guys communications about that. The refresh is meant for people who are already using the CMS, wanna know more. It's really a good Q&A time as well. Of course, we're always available to answer your questions, but it's a good time to hear other people's issues or get feedback on a page or all kinds of things. So we look forward to announcing more information about that. So I'm Cassandra Ketrick, and I'm a web content producer. And this is Karen, and she is also a web content producer. And I'm newer to the group. I've been here a little over 6 months. Karen's been here 2 years. Yeah, so we have varying degrees of CMS knowledge. I came from the University of Oklahoma where we use the same exact CMS. And so I've been using it for about 5 years and Karen for about 2. So between us, we have a good breadth of knowledge. But that being said, I learn new stuff every day. And I'm not joking. I learn stuff, 10 minutes before this meeting. I learn stuff all the time. And that's for a couple of reasons. Because we're always improving the system. It's because there's nuances that you've never needed before, but then now you're questioning it. Well, I need this, so how could I make this possible? So that being said, you're going to learn a lot today. Take it all in, and please let us know if you have any questions. But just know that it's a learning process, and you're going to learn more in the future. So that's kind of the exciting thing about it. So real quick, I'll just mention we have a blog that all of our office kind of contributes on, and we're working on revamping it a little bit to be a little more bloggy look and feel, so that there's authors on it and things like that, so you can see who's writing the content. But we would encourage you to visit it for some additional information that's not on our website. We have some great posts about using digital images, like what kind of images you should be using for your website. Karen wrote a great post about copyright. So there's all kinds of materials there. And then we're on Twitter, and that's kind of new for us. And we'd encourage you to tweet at us, tweet with us, and connect with us. We announce things there. We try to connect with people. We have Tuesday tips where we give little CMS tips or social media tips. And at our CMS refresh sessions, we actually do a giveaway. So I'd encourage you to go to those, and you'll get like something pretty fun. That's not a t-shirt, I promise. So first we'll kind of begin, before I get into logging in, actually, let me point out the 5-step better content piece that is in front of you. We're not going to go over this today. It's meant just as a supplemental material for you to keep by your desk as you're putting in new content or maybe rethinking content. And it's just some best practices that we tell units when we're migrating them in. But if you haven't had that experience, then you would have missed that information. So this is something that we offer them. And then also the reference guide is the agenda for this afternoon, but also has some links for you to bookmark the VPN information, which is a part of logging in and things like that. So if you bookmark these, but say you get a new computer, I know some of you have, you can always reference this. And it's always on our website, of course, but sometimes, it's easier to just pull out that piece of paper. So logging into the CMS is the URL is cmsauthor.nyu.edu. Not www, just cmsauthor.nyu.edu. And you have to be connected to the NYU network in order to access it. So what does that mean if you're at home? That means you use the VPN. And the VPN information and URL is actually on that reference guide I mentioned. And it's very easy if you have a Mac. It's just another network that's already kind of programmed on your computer. You type in the credentials that NYU has given you on this ITS site. The link is on your reference guide. And if you're on a PC, there's instructions of how to do that as well. As you download something, you connect that way. And then the one thing that hopefully I'll drill into you guys today is to use Firefox when you are authoring in the CMS. That doesn't mean when you're viewing the CMS, you can use any browser, of course, for your published pages. But when you're authoring, when you're putting in content, use Firefox. If you experience any kind of weirdness, the first thing I would always say is check what browser you're in, because I don't use Firefox as my personal browser. I use Chrome because I like it more. So sometimes I'll be quick and I'll be in Chrome and I'll be like, why isn't my damn asset uploading? And it's because I'm in Chrome. So that's a good troubleshooting item. So let's go ahead and go into the CMS. I'm going to hop over to our pages I already have pulled up. And I'll kind of run through.
What version are we on today?
Of CMS? CQ 5.4. But we're going to be upgrading to 5.6 this winter, I'd say. Probably be November. So the question is for you guys on GoTo Training, sorry about that, was what version of CQ are we on right now? And the answer is CQ 5.4. Okay, so once you've logged into the CMS, this pane will show up so that this is your site admin. And I'm actually impersonating, I've created a user. I'm an admin type user, so I see a lot more than you would see. So I've created this fake Bobcat mascot user. So to kind of show you exactly the information that you're going to be seeing. So you're going to log in, you're going to see the site admin view. It's going to be on this globe, you'll notice that. And you'll notice that you have a photo. Here, I think I can zoom in, it might be a little bit easier. A camera here, those are your digital, that's your digital asset manager or DAM. And then you'll have a tagging icon here. You will never use tagging, so you can actually disregard that. Your two main site admin actions would be your digital assets and your globe or your site admin. So this is the navigation pane over here on the left. And then this was your details pane. So that means that once you click on an item over here in your navigation pane, if there are any children pages to it, it'll show up in your details page. So what does it mean if I want to see the employee's top page? I need to hit English. I need to hit its parents page. So then I can see employees. So that brings me to the parent-child relationship. These are parent pages, the top level navigation, and then anything underneath is a child. And a child can have children. This isn't going to necessarily be important to you as you author, but in terms of the language, if you had an issue or you're trying to communicate something for us, it might be helpful for you to know, it's a child page or a page underneath leadership and university administration, for example. And as you notice, you're seeing a lot of information here over on the details page. This is the page title. So this is the H1 on the page. So when you create a page, it autofills the title. And then the name is actually the URL. The URL and the title should be the exact same or very similar. So there are cases, as you can see, like University Life, where it's different. But we recommend a strong recommendation of them being the same unless there is a good case to make it different. And you'll see a published information. And if you kind of pull this out, you'll be able to even see who published it. So the user who published it. This can be helpful when you're trying to find out who owns a page. Typically, whoever last published it is the owner. Not always, but typically. And as well as modified. So the colors are pretty obvious. Green is activated. That means it's currently live. Red is deactivated. Someone's deactivated this page. It is not live. It can not be accessed to the world. However, us as authors can still see it. Modified means it's blue, and it means that there are changes that have been made on the page, but they haven't been activated. So the only thing you would want to note is if you have multiple users in your unit and you notice some blue and it's something you haven't modified, you might want to check with whoever modified it to make sure that that you can activate that page if you were needed to do that. Just because it's just good communication. They may have something on there they were working on, they weren't ready for it to go live. So that can be a helpful indicator. And the other item that I wanted to kind of go over here is your actions pane. You can notice some different actions here. Some of them are grayed out. That means I don't have permission to this. Bobcat, our fake user today, has permissions to a section I created under our Digicom training or test section called the CMS Sandbox, so that the idea behind it is we can, kind of play around and we won't mess anything up. And so now you can see that when I selected that top level page, I get all kinds of other items that I can do because he has permission to these. So what can I do? I can create new pages under here. And this is your title, again, your H1, and then your name. So this would be all lowercase. So if the title was, this is an example, it would be, this is an example. And the name, as I mentioned earlier, is the URL of the page. So it's important that this mirror the title. You can actually leave this empty, and it will autofill when you create the page. It will create your URL for you. So we recommend that you do that unless you really do want to type it in, but this will kind of prevent any kind of user error that may happen. So you can leave the name blank and create a page, and it will automatically create that nice same exact URL for you. And this is how you select your template. And we'll get into templates a little bit later, but then you would select the template that you're wanting to create, say create. That's one of the actions. You can copy a page and paste a page. This may be helpful if you're wanting to play around with the same exact page, but maybe experiment with some content that you don't want to go live yet. You can delete a page. We recommend, and Karen will mention this as well, to deactivate a page and then delete it. It's kind of a best practice of deactivating a page or an asset, a digital asset, and then deleting it. It kind of is better for the workflow end to deactivate and then delete. And then move. I'll get into that in a little bit as well, but that's a fun feature of how you can rename your URL. You can activate, deactivate workflow you will never use, and tools, find and replace, and you can see references, other pages that are referencing your page. So find and replace would be like, say we find out that email is now being e-mail, which is a real life thing that happened. And we referenced it all over our site as e-space mail or something, or no space mail. We could go and find and replace and actually change that.
I think it's also useful for units because oftentimes you have name changes. So sometimes you can select your page and then you can do a find and replace on all of your pages, and we'll do a find and replace of your unit name so you don't have to go through and edit the content individually.
Yeah, so there's quite a few ways that could be used to kind of help save you guys some time. So let's talk about your template pages. I've got some content pages I've already created, and you can see I've named them what they are. I'll kind of pull them up over here. This is a content 3.2 template, and I'll explain what that means. Let me kind of zoom out here so you can see all of it. So the CMS is built on a 5-column grid, and that 5-column grid is 960 pixels wide. And the different templates, a 3.2, a 4.1, a 3.1.1, or a 5, means basically it's predetermined columns. So 3.2 would mean 3 columns wide, and then a 2-column wide. So that gets a little confusing at first because then we use columns within columns, but you'll kind of see the more you're in it, the more it makes more sense. So when I actually create a 3.2 page, you'll see that there is this much space, 3 columns, even though there's only one piece of content here, and then there's 2-column wide of space over here. This can help you kind of get started so you don't have to start from scratch in terms of your columns. The Content 5 template we would recommend for layout artists or people who are very layout savvy, because you can really play around and mess around with things, create your own columns and do all kinds of things. But this is a good guide to start with. And there's different reasons for selecting your templates, and that kind of gets down to unit specific and content specific. Also, I should mention with the 5-column template that, again, I recommended, more advanced users. Body copy should never span more than 3 columns wide, and that with more inexperienced authors, they may want to, or they may not realize what they've done, but they could actually put some body copy here that will expand all 5 columns, right? So just be conscious of that if you do decide to experiment with the content 5 template, is that it should be 3 columns. And I can show you exactly how to do that within the 5 column as well. So this is your site admin view I showed you, and we jumped in. This is considered edit mode, and you have a couple of different things going on. We have this lovely widget type element called the sidekick, not a cell phone, but it is a very handy item. This is your asset tray over on the left, and it actually is showing you digital assets. So remember that DM I spoke about? It's showing the last 30 uploads in this left pane. But if you want to drill down to specific photos, say you couldn't find it, you're having trouble finding it, you can select this last browse tab, and then you can kind of drill down to the more specific folder that you're looking for, and you can see the images in that folder. So that's also helpful. And then your sidekick, you have a couple of tabs. You first have general. These are all of your components under this kind of block tab. These are all of your components that you will use to build your page out and use for layout. So general, we're not going to go over everything today. Karen will go over some specific components that you will use most often, and sometimes we get the most questions about. You have a promos tab down here. Some people don't see that, so just know that you can expand it as such. And these are also all outlined in our online training. So it shows you examples of them, what they look like, very detailed information about what you need for them. I use it to this day. I use it to kind of show me examples. And then your other tab, column control I mentioned, the frequently asked questions container, more than likely you're not going to use it. And shortcuts is a nice way to add a drop-down shortcuts component to your page. Then on this tab, we have some page properties, create a child page, some of the action items that we saw in our last site admin pane, lock page, which we don't recommend because it is specific to your net ID. So that means that if you left the university, it's not a huge deal, but you would, whoever locked that page, we would have to get an ITS ticket open so that the developers could go in and manually unlock it. Not a big deal, but it could hiccup your process if you were on a time-sensitive project. And then show references. The one thing that you'll use the most here is your page properties. And the only thing that you will really use this to is to hide in navigation or to change your page title. And then under this information tab, which looks like a little lock, you're going to be able to see an audit log, who last touched the page, and this permissions, again, you're never going to use it, but the audit log can be helpful. Versioning is one of my favorite things about the CMS. So if I want to experiment and play around with the page, but I want to roll back, this is how you do it. Every time you activate your content, it creates a version automatically. However, you can create your own versions manually. So if you want to comment, so this is an example, and I create a version. If I go down to my restore a version and I hover over it, it will then tell me what my comment was, so you can put some notes there for yourself for reference. And then lastly, this workflow tab you will never use, so you don't have to worry about it. A couple more things before I'll hand it over to Karen so she can get more into adding content to your page. To preview your information, so as you can see, we're in edit mode. I see these blocks on my page, and I want to see what my site would look live. I can select that magnifying glass to switch to preview. One thing I'll note here is that if you experience something that is looking a little off, a good troubleshooting task is to refresh your page. So we'll go into preview mode and then hard refresh it in your tab, and see if you're seeing the exact same thing. Sometimes the JavaScript may get a little off, and by refreshing it, you can solve your problem, and it'll look correct. And then lastly, I'll mention that getting back to the site admin, so where we were before, every user is different, but for me, I like to open up 2 tabs. I like to have my edit tab, and I like to have my site admin tab. but some people kind of work within one window, and that's fine. It's your preference. The way you would get back from the sidekick is just selecting your websites or this globe, and it's going to kick you back to the site admin. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Karen for the component-specific stuff, and she can walk you through adding content to your page.
So Cassie's showed you sort of an overall picture of the CMS, how you navigate through it, how you create pages. And I'm going to show you what you do once you've actually on your page and you want to start inputting your content onto the pages. The system was chosen by the Web Advisory Board probably like 5 years ago now, and it was chosen because you don't need to know coding to build a web page. It's very much a what you see is what you get kind of interface, WYSIWYG, and also it's a drag and drop system, which is really nice. So everything you see on the page is a component. It's a discrete chunk of information, of content, and you just drag and drop it into the page. We have some examples already here, but I'll just sort of show you. Say visually I wanted to add a divider here. You might not be able to see it because at the top there it's light, but there's a gray divider. You can see I just took it from the sidekick and I just highlighted it and then I dragged it over and I added it into the areas where there's sort of a dotted line and it prompts you to drag and drop your component over. The divider can be put anywhere. Yeah, it's sort of a way to visually break up the space, to add a little bit of white space in there and to give just visual cues to people that maybe there's some different content going on. Also, doing too well with this. Also, once you drag and drop your component into there, there's a couple of different ways to go into edit mode. So you dragged it and dropped it in. Now you need to enter content into the component that you've entered. We have a couple of here already here. Up here, you would write. You can either double click it, and that should open up edit mode. The other thing you can do is you can right click it, or not. Is it? Yeah, right click it, and a drop down menu will happen, and you can select edit from there. In that menu, you also have some other editing prompts that you can use. You can cut it, you can copy it. So that's really kind of nice because you can copy that text. And for some reason you want to put it in a different place, you can just paste it there and see if you like it better there. Perhaps you're just trying things out. You want to see where things are on a page. You can copy and paste it rather than having to redo the thing every single time. Also, if you decide you don't like it there, you can use that menu and you can delete it. As well as copy and paste, you can also drag and drop elements, components. So say I put that divider up there. You can drag it into a different spot on the page. But don't drag it across. So when you have these templates, we have the 3-column space and we have the 2-column space on this. Don't drag and drop horizontally. We found that sometimes it will break a page. And if it breaks, then you have to put in a ticket with ITS. So it's better if you want to put some information that's over on the 3-column side and you want it in the 2-column side, use the copy and paste function. But if you want to move vertically up and down within the same column, you can drag and drop things as you want. Okay. Also, I mentioned editing before, the 2 ways to get into edit, but we also have another way to edit with some of the components. We have 2 different types of components. So some of them will actually have the blue bar across the top. So you won't necessarily be able to right click into it or to double click it. You'll just have to go into the blue bar and hit edit that way. And then once you hit edit, a dialog box pops up and you're prompted to enter the information in there that you that's required of that element. So right now I'm going to go through just a few components, about 3 of them. I'm going to go through the rich text component, which is the one you'll probably be using the most, to be honest, because that's where you put in all your text. I'll go through the column control component, which Cassie had sort of mentioned, that you can use it to further divide up your space. And I'll be going over the reference component, which is sort of one of those underutilized components that can be pretty useful for people to use. So the rich text. I'll use this one as an example. Oops. Edit. So it sort of has that look. Once again, it's what's called a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. It sort of has a familiarity, like maybe what you've seen in Microsoft Word, sort of the things that you expect to see. Bold, italics, underline, subscripts, superscripts. The first thing that you do is when you come and you want to start entering text onto a page is if you have your content, say in a Word document, which I know a lot of people do, they start in a Word document and then they want to move it over into the CMS. The first thing to remember is don't copy and paste directly into this space, because Word documents have underlying HTML code that will transfer over into this. So it has to be stripped first, and the good thing is that if you strip it first, then you don't get any sort of rogue code ending up in your things. You don't mess up your formatting. The bad thing is it does strip out all that coding that you put all that time and effort into on your Word doc. It's going to strip it out and you're going to have to reformat it. But you use the clipboard, it's right up here, and you copy and paste it right into there. And you hit OK. And it will appear up here stripped. So then you'll have to go in and reformat it as necessary. Let's see. Here we have, so if you want to make links, contextual links within some of your content, the globe with the chain link next to it is how you make your link. You click on that, and there are two types of links that you'll probably be making. One are external links, and so that those are links that go to pages that aren't in the CMS. They go to other websites. They go to maybe NYU sites that aren't necessarily in the CMS. They're still sort of legacy sites on I-4 sites. The other type you'll make are internal ones. Those are links going to pages that are within our CMS. They're nyu.edu pages. If you do an external link, you just type in, as you would normally, .edu, and you hit OK. But if you want to make an internal link, we highly recommend you use it this way, where you actually navigate to where that page lives on the CMS. And the benefit of doing it this way, rather than putting in the full pathway of the HTTP, is that when you make internal links, especially if you're making them to other people's pages, if other authors, if they change their page, if they delete a page, if for some reason the URL changes, the CMS will automatically update your links for you. So you're not going to end up with a bunch of broken links on your site. So that's sort of the benefit of doing it that way. So that's a hyperlink. Let's put one in. Once you've made the link, if you decide you don't want the link, you can break it. An anchor link is oftentimes it's used for making internal linking on your page. So if you have a large amount of content that's on your page and you want to have a sort of what's on this page and quick jump links, I guess you could call them, like jump links. So you have a bunch of content that you're afraid somebody down at the bottom that's at the bottom of the page, and you're afraid maybe your site viewer won't know that it's there. You can put like a side navigation and use the anchor link to jump them down to there, so they'll see it there. We have bullets, we have numbered lists. You can format using indenting outwards and inwards. This is kind of cool. It's a special character map. So you can add special characters in using this. We have a few styles that you can apply to it, not many. I think mostly people use the gray text is one that they'll use to format their page and give the text a different feel. It's often used to denote if you have a PDF. So if you are linking a PDF, it's a good usability thing to tell your site viewer that you're linking to a PDF. And oftentimes the formatting people use the link, the title of the PDF, And then in gray text next to it, they'll put PDF in capital letters. And then we have our formatting. Generally, show this. This we would typically call paragraph. So if you were forming content on your own page, and then you might want to give that a header to tell people what the chunk of information is about. I'll just put header. And headers should be used in chronological order, starting with H2. The CMS sandbox is your H1. It's the title of your page, so that's what's called an H1 header. A header 2 should come next. And then if you were to subdivide that information and give it sort of subheaders, you would want to use it in chronological order, going header 3, header 4. The reason we want you to do it in chronological order is some of our site viewers use assistive devices such as screen readers, and screen readers use headers to navigate pages. So if you're using headers out of order, they're going to get confused. You're going to be jumping them around because the screen reader will go to header 2, but maybe header 2 is all the way down here, and really you want them reading the page from top to bottom, left to right. So you'll end up jumping them all around, and you'll get a frustrated user. Plus, it's just a clean, good way to structure your content so that we have a standardized way of standardized look on NYU.edu.
Try to use like a bullet, and then part of the bullet you have a bold face, and then you have a part of the bold face, and it seems like you can't do that. So let's say you have like a name of a program, and then you want the date, and you want to put the date not in bold.
So test and then date. Oops.
So the question for our go-to training was about bullets and an issue a user is having with the formatting of bullets. So we're going to kind of try to troubleshoot that.
Okay. So you're saying you put a bullet on it, and then
if I try and bold it,
so you'd want to bold test,
yeah,
and you just want to bold it.
yeah.
It might just be one of those weird, quirky things.
Okay.
If you keep running into it, you can send one of us an email,
Okay.
and we can help troubleshoot it through it. If you have an example on page, just send us the link.
Okay.
Because quirky things do happen. I'm not going to pretend they don't. Where it's like you show up to a group and you're like, this really happens, I swear. And then we're like, yeah, all right. Yeah. I think that's it as far as the rich text. Were there any other questions quickly? Anything? Nope. Okay. I think go over column control, which Cassie's already put on this page. So she mentioned before, column control is a way to further subdivide your page. So if you have a 3-column space, but say you'd like to put 3 promos across, or maybe you have a biography, so you'd like the picture of somebody and then you'd like the text right next to them, and that wouldn't work in a 3-column space. You can use the column control component, which is in your sidekick under other, and you drag and drop it in as it is here, and you go into edit mode, and here it gives you all the choices you have for subdividing that space. So you can choose a 1-1-1, a 2-1, or 1-2, or a 1-1 again. Once you've made your choice, we have a 3. We have a 1-1-1 here, so we're able to just drag and drop whatever we like into those spaces. That one. I'll just go ahead and format. Should I go ahead and format that? Yeah.
I'm sure about the copying image.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and format one that she already has in here. So this is a rounded promo. And this usually only goes into 1-column space. And so there you would type your text. You can choose a color because we have a multitude of colors. You can add more text if you like. And you can choose a different color for it. And then you can go into the tabs You can drop an image in there, and I'll take this, let's play. Now, when you're using this particular component, you need to go in and you need to select crop, and you need to select 1. And it's going to crop it strangely, so you might want to move it around so that it looks good. And if you don't do that, for this one in particular, it will stretch out and it will not format correctly on the page, so it's important to remember to crop it. Alt text. Let's play example. And then for promos, since promos, I don't know if we explained that. Promos are basically like you're on a page and you don't want the full content on there, but you think it's important for people who may be viewing that page that there's other content elsewhere. And you're like, if you're viewing this page, you probably really want to know about this content too. So you can put what's called a promo on there. That basically is a link that sort of looks a little splashier to catch their eye. And it will send them, it will push them to that content if it's something that they feel they do want. I think that's it. So you hit OK. And so you can see in that, even though it's a 3-column space, that component only takes up 1 column amount of space. And so then you're able to add components next to it. So you can have 3 in a row there. And basically, the only space that you can't subdivide would be the 1-column space. You can't further subdivide that, but any other space you can subdivide using that component. And then the reference component, I'll go through quickly. Reference components are really good if you're using promos on your page, if you're using a lot of them and you plan to have them on a lot of your pages. You can build out a page that's called your unit name promos or your unit name references, and then you can build out all of your promos on that page, and then you can go to your other pages and you can reference that. So basically what that does for you is you have one place where you edit, but it makes changes all over your site for you. The other thing you can do is you can reference content that's on other people's pages. So that's really nice. If HR has something that you think is valuable and you want that content on your page, you can reference that component, that content on the HR site onto yours. And anytime HR makes an update to that content, it will automatically update yours. Problem is that if HR deletes it, then your component will break. So you just have to be aware of that. But that's just sort of a nice feature to have. And you're not able to edit yourself, so just remember that. If you put it on the page and you like HR's content, but you want to make a change to the language, you can't do that. That's their content. They own it.
And if that component breaks because the original content was deleted, you can easily delete the component and you're fine. Or change your reference content. It doesn't break your page or your edit mode page.
On the published site, it will degrade, so it will look fine. You'll only see it in the CMS, the sort of authoring environment. You'll see something that says like error on it. And if you're wondering what that is, it's your reference broke. So I think that's all we were going to go over with components. Does anyone have any questions though before I move on?
Does anybody have questions on the go-to training at this point?
Oops.
No, hold on.
If we're embedding video, sorry, head cold. If we're embedding video, is that the same with the rest of the videos?
So the question is about embedding videos, and we will show you.
So we have a video component that you can use. Oops. That one column. So you can drag and drop it in. And then you go into edit. And then with the video path, it sort of has a prompt here. So you can upload your video to the digital management system, which
I'm going to sort of show you in a moment after this, but it's where you upload all your media, PDFs, images, video, audio. And so once you've uploaded it to that place, then you can make a path to it basically in this component. The other thing you can do is if you have a YouTube page, you can grab that embed code, that pathway from there, and it will automatically embed it into the page. And then NYU Stream has that as well, right?
Yeah, and with YouTube, it's nice. You just need the URL.
Mm-hmm.
And the caption path is only good for DAM videos, that we're hosting. If you have captions on YouTube, it will pull those in. If you have your image thumbnail set on YouTube, it should display. The intro image for the DAM video, which is the second tab, is again for that DAM video that you've uploaded. You can select an image. This is helpful in the past for us when we did commencement videos. We would put those up, and then we'd have a nice, really nice high-res commencement photos of the graduates. So you wouldn't need this tab if you had a YouTube video, but it is there for the DAM.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the DAM a little bit. You probably thought we were swearing at first, but we weren't, I promise. DAM, Digital Asset Management. It's, like I said before, it's where you're going to upload all your media to. When you first log in, it will be the giant camera icon, if that's where you want to go immediately, or if you are navigating to it from after building your page, you'll want to go back to the site admin console, and then there's an icon at the top there for you to navigate to it. In the digital asset management system, you should only see probably 2 folders, unless you're an author for multiple sections of the site. But if you only have one section that you're responsible for, you'll see your folder under NYU, and it will be the name of your unit. And if you expand that out, you'll see that there are 4 folders underneath that: audio, documents, images, and video. I think there's also a miscellaneous with some of them, so if you see that, that belongs there too. These folders are predetermined, and they're not ones that you can edit, or so there's no adding folders to this. You just sort of have to work within these confines. But once you get into the folders, or the images folder, if you have a lot of images, if you want to organize them in a certain way, a way that makes sense to you, a more granular organization, you're welcome to create folders underneath and organize as you want to. There, let's see. I guess naming, we recommend that you name, this is a good example, that you name using hyphens in between. Try to avoid spaces, avoid special characters. Oftentimes I get calls from people who say, you know, I've activated my pages, I've activated my assets, but the picture's not showing up on my page. Sometimes if you have spaces in your file name, that will happen, that where the image just won't show up. The CMS doesn't like it for some reason. So, and it's just good also to try and use a systematic approach to your file naming, whatever works for you, but just try to keep it consistent and try to make it so that it's understandable to other people. So when you pass on your responsibilities, they'll understand kind of what you've done. Yes.
So if we've inherited incredibly disorganized,
Yes.
can I do what you just said, organize it, and have a more predictable, file naming system, and that will update the assets where they're referenced, or should I not play around with that? Like, how much can I retroactively to organize our DAM?
There is something called move.
So theoretically, you can. So the question is about if you inherit an organized DAM, can you go back and rename things? And let's try to rename this one. That's incorrect. It has a space in it. As you can see, it allowed me to upload it. It allowed me to activate it. It allowed me to use it. Do we recommend it? No. But it's just to show you that the CMS will work with it. Let's say we rename it at this point. And let's see let's just try it and see what happens.
Okay. And I use something called the move function, just so you know. You don't necessarily have to, if you want to move it to a different location, you can, but this can also be used for renaming. So that would be this instance. Just hit move. Yes. And it broke.
So the answer would be no.
Yeah, I guess so.
At this time, no, but we are working on an upgrade, and so this is something we can tell our developers and they can look into, because I think you're in the position that a lot of people might be in. And even if you do make a mistake, let's say everyone makes a mistake and you want to rename it, it would be nice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can look into that. Thank you. Good point.
Though it did rename, it's interesting.
Yeah, it might be that it worked. It just appeared not to work.
Yeah, let's just, I mean, we've got a little time, right? Let's try,
Refresh. I know.
yeah, refresh, exactly. That's actually a good point. If things don't look right sometimes, refresh your page and it will look right all of a sudden. I know that sounds weird, but it's true.
Then the page where that picture is referenced.
Yeah, let's go back to it.
Should be the main page. I think it was already open. If you want to go on the other. Yeah, I think it's, we'll go to content 3.2 and then click on the top sandbox. I think it was on there. I could be wrong though. No, it wasn't. Where did I use it? I might have not used it.
Let's see. Maybe I should try the let's play.
Yeah.
So let's just move that to the test folder, I guess. Because that's really what you want to do. You don't really want to rename. You want to move into folders. Okay. So that seemed to move it in. It's been modified. Let's activate it. Something to remember too, when you upload assets to the DAM, make sure you activate them.
Mm-hmm. Even if you're not ready for your pages to be live, go ahead and activate your assets.
Let's see. Sandbox. Refresh. That seems to work.
But what about renaming the file?
Let's try
Like
that.
to let's play to or something.
Oops.
What you're seeing is more information about the photo too. So if you double click on the photo, you'll get the metadata. You can add keywords and things like that to it.
So that seemed okay. Seems to work.
Yeah, it didn't break even though it gave us that kind of scary red error.
I'm gonna say probably try it out with a few, see if it works, and carry on. Yeah.
Great question.
That's good. See, we also have a shared folder. This is available to all CMS authors. We have some photos in here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. That you are allowed to use to put some visual interests on your page. So if you don't have any photos of your own to put up, you can always come to the share folder to look for imagery to put on your thing. As far as just going to copyrights a little, a lot of people think it's okay to go to Google and to grab an image to put on the site. Please don't do that. It's not the right thing to do. Those images are protected by copyright oftentimes. If you found it via search engine, it's probably copyrighted. We have a blog post up that directs you towards imagery you can use. One, you can start with our shared images. Two, you can use imagery that has a Creative Commons license. As long as you follow the limitations of the license, they might ask you to give credit where credit's due. But other than that, it will be free. Just make sure you follow what the specific guidelines are. There's also images that are considered public domain. Oftentimes you'll find that on library websites or whatever. These are images that no longer fall under copyright laws. Oftentimes they're really old, or for whatever reason they just never fell under copyright. Once again, it's your due diligence to make sure they are public domain, but public domain images can be used for free. If you have a budget, you can buy imagery from iStock or other stock photography sites.
And I know a lot of you are new to NYU, and so when I found out about this resource, I was excited. So the NYU Photo Bureau is a great resource on campus, and a blog post also references their office and links out to it. But they can also negotiate for cheaper licenses through iStock or third-party vendors. They also take their own photography, so maybe you want to hire them for an event or specifically for your school or unit. Jane Berg and the Photo Bureau do a great job. So a lot of these photos are from their group and their photographers. And then that stock category under there is actually something newer to the CMS. We got these photos in the past month, and they're more generic photos, not specific to NYU, but can be used mostly for our event calendar. But you may find that they're helpful for some more of the generic kind of content that needs images.
And Jane is a great resource at the Photo Bureau for NYU types of photography that you won't find anywhere else. Let's see, my phone naming convention. So just a couple of standout items. I'll go into this maybe. So I mentioned with the assets, the activation, and I think Cassie mentioned earlier, when you are done editing your pages and you're ready for them to go live, you utilize the activate button, which can be found in the sidekick, but it's also up here in the site console. Sometimes, as actually we can see here, the red means deactivated. For whatever reason, somebody made a page, they published it so it was live to the site, but then they decided that they didn't want it anymore, to be live at least. Sometimes people do this if they have seasonal information that's only applicable for the fall season. But they might want to reuse it the next year. So that way they can have the page, they can keep the information, and then they can deactivate it so nobody can see it in the spring and summer, but when fall comes back around, they can reactivate it. Sometimes people just don't want their pages anymore. They don't make sense. They've moved on to different pages. The content's old. It's important to remember that if you're going to delete a page, deactivate first, then delete. So I write that down. Deactivate first, then delete. What happens is if you go straight towards delete, and this is the same as for any digital asset you might have, if you directly delete, we've had instances of basically you no longer see it in the CMS, but when you go to a live site, it's there. It's still on your page. It's still active. It's still going. And we have to put in a ticket with ITS to have them take it down. And if it's sort of a time-sensitive thing, then you're stuck waiting for ITS to do it. So deactivate, delete. It's really important. Now that you are a part of our CMS community, we have something on the site. Let's see. I have to do this, but that's okay. At the bottom of all of our CMS pages is our footer. We have something called feedback. You are all going to receive feedback. If somebody is on your page that you are an author of, and they have a question, they have a comment, they see a broken link, they can use this form, and they'll send the feedback, and the feedback will go directly to your email account. And it's your responsibility to answer the site viewer or to take action or to determine that no action is needed. But it's your responsibility to do that. If we see that no action has been taken, you might get a friendly reminder from us, within a week or so saying, hey, did you see this? Or sometimes we get feedback that maybe you didn't receive, but it belongs to you. So you might get an email from us saying, hey, we got this feedback, would you mind reaching out to this person and helping them? So just to know that that's available. The other thing is when you're going through the site, once again, if your unit's name's changed or something's happened where your content, you need updated links and you're finding other authors are using the wrong name for your office, or you want them to update a link because the form is new, and so they need to update a link that for something that you actually control, you can use the feedback component, to communicate with other authors. It's a great way of kind of getting their attention. Not only does it get their attention, but logs a ticket in. So we're going to follow up on it as well if no action's taken and we feel action needs to be taken. Sometimes when you're just trying to email or find out who the author is, things fall through the cracks. And we found this is a great way to communicate with other authors.
We have a question, I think, on go-to training. I saw it bounce. I'm trying to pay attention. So the question, is there a quick view function for the dam, or do you have to open each thumbnail individually?
I mean, I guess, like a preview? No, I think you have to open it if you want to see
The larger
larger image. That tiny thumbnail is as good as it gets at this point. There's no sort of preview spacebar thing.
Good question. If we purchase an image, do we have to register proof of purchase or right to publish with someone in Digicom? No, we don't have a registration. That's kind of on the unit again to keep that documentation. If there was ever a question about a photo, we wouldn't normally raise that question, but let's say there's some other third-party site that's on our site, wants to know, where'd you get this photo? Do you have permission to use it? Then the onus would be on the department to keep that information. But a good question. We don't require people to register their images with us.
Sort of a reminder, all of this information and much, much more is at nyu.edu/CMS, which is our tutorial that we've mentioned a couple of times through this. It has everything that we've gone over today and a lot more.
Yeah, so that's a good overview, and we'd like to take your questions. This would be a good time to let us know if you have any other thoughts or questions about what we've gone over today. And you guys on GoTo Training as well, if you guys have any questions, just type them in and we'll. What does publishing an image asset do, and why did you recommend publishing them even if the page is not yet published? I realize your message is private. I'm sorry about that, but we're sharing our screen. Publishing an image or asset actually makes it available to put it on a page. It's if the asset wasn't published or activated, and you make sure, and you use it on a page and you activate that page, you would be prompted before it went live that there are assets on this page that are not activated. Are you sure you want to continue? If you say, yes, yeah, sure, I want to continue and I haven't activated my assets, they won't show up to your authors. So they need to be active or live in a sense, so that the CMS recognizes. What that also does is it gives that asset a specific URL, and I can kind of show you quickly how to get that URL. So if I open up this page, and if I do this correctly, you can actually, I think you can do this a couple ways, as you can do most things a couple ways. Copy link location by right-clicking. You can download this image as well, just for your reference. And if you put that link that I just copied into another tab, this is the link, the live link to the image. If your image is not, or your document PDF is not activated, that link wouldn't work.
We will often, or potentially even if all text has been pre-approved in images, have requests from higher ups to preview a page before they sign off. Is there a way to send a preview link?
So great question. Is there a way to send a preview link to someone who's probably not in the CMS, but they need to kind of sign off on a page? The answer is no, but there is a creative way to do it. There is a creative way that would be a workaround, I'd say, to do that. Better than a screenshot, say, because some users do screenshot a page. That can be a little tricky if your page is pretty long. I would say what you could do is you could actually hide your page in navigation through the page properties. So hide in navigation. And that would mean that when you activate it, so that you can get a URL, no one would see it, and only people with URL would see it. So you would want to kind of make sure that nowhere else on your website that is published is linking to this, obviously, live page. But more than likely, that wouldn't be the case. So you could hide in your navigation, activate it, send it to your people, maybe then go ahead and proactively deactivate it until you're ready once they've approved it. Since the link has now been sent via email, you never know where it'll end up. But that's maybe a quick way to get that instead of someone being over your shoulder.
Just so you know, sometimes people who are approving things do tend to jump the gun because if you do send them the link, they're like, yay, it's live.
Oh, yes.
So if you do choose to do that, make sure that
very
they
careful.
absolutely know that that's not because we just recently had somebody send out an email with something they shouldn't have. So absolutely make sure you take, the grounds.
It is a little riskier, and there is no kind of published URL that we can offer people at this time. But so hiding it from a navigation, the question is, would hiding a page from navigation also hide it from the search engines? So the answer is kind of. So the way I understand it, and Jim, our executive director, knows a lot more about. He actually works on the search appliance for NYU.edu, and maybe there's some people in this room that do as well. But from my understanding, if the page isn't being linked out to on a live page, it will not show up in search. So say this is a brand new page, you're just showing it to people. It's not anywhere linked out to anywhere else on your live site. It would be hidden for the time being. But that's a great question. And that's also why I would encourage you, there may be some loophole to that. I would encourage you to deactivate it once your people who've approved the page know that, just to go ahead and be safe about it. Yeah, and we also have Eric Frost just walked in, and he's an expert. We could ask him, maybe he'll know. So the question was, is there a publish or a way to, send a preview URL to maybe higher ups, people that aren't in the CMS? And we suggested one workaround that may be better than a screenshot for those users is hiding the page in the navigation and activating it so that they could have a URL, but being very clear that this is not, a URL that we should be, publishing yet. The question then would be if hiding it from the page navigation also hides it from search engines. And based on a discussion over the last CMS refresh, Jim said that it hides it. He said that it hides it as long as it's not being linked out anywhere within an activated live page. Maybe not. Yeah.
I think the answer is if you do that, it's got to be for a short period of time. It's as long as your content is high risk, high sensitivity, it's probably an okay thing to do. Just a one-page, quick little review process. But most of those web bots that crawl are crawling anything that they can crawl. So if there's any way that it can be connected to another piece of content and the bot can follow that trail, then it'll find it, it'll surface it. It's going to take a while, and it's going to be ranked really low because it's not cross-linked, it's not mapped, it's not in navigation, so it's going to be hidden. So it's unlikely that somebody would go through 7 pages of results to find it. So it's probably a safe thing to do, but you wouldn't want to do it for a long period of time. If you have significant amounts of content that you want to preview and change, there's no easy way to do that in production. You either have to have somebody who is a CMS author open it up into preview mode and walk through kind of personally in a scheduled time, or we can help on a larger scale project. We have other spaces where it's designed to be built and published to non-CMS authors to review in whole, so we can always help with that.
Any other questions? Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Like I said, you guys are a part of the NYU CMS user community, so you guys are going to get communications from us about new upgrades or new components, improved components, and more meetings like this that are maybe a little more advanced for you. So now that you've gotten the beginner session out of the way, you guys are ready to become experts, I hope.